What's up, guys? Welcome back to the iOS development channel, where I bring you high quality iOS dev videos so that you can up your game as a developer and increase your value as a developer. In this video, I'm going to show you how we can create this drop-down UI table view cell that we can reuse as many times as we want and put our own custom content within each table view cell. Now, that's something important to note here, is that this is a cell, right? We're not just opening table view sections. What this means is that you're going to have more control over what you want to put within it, and you're going to be able to do cooler things with it, all right? So let's go ahead and get started by creating a new Xcode project. And this Xcode project is going to be a single view app, and I'm just going to call this Dropdown Expandable TableViewCell, whatever you want to call it. And this source code is available in the lecture notes below in the description. And we are going to get started, okay? So the first thing we want to do is get rid of this nasty comment, because who likes nasty comments, right? And then I'll close that off. And then what I'll do is declare a table view, okay? Let's go ahead and declare this table view by saying let table view is of type uitableview. And we'll set this equal to a function that returns itself. Then we'll declare the table view. And then we're just going to say TableView.translates auto-resizing masks and constraints is to false. And what this will allow us to do is constrain this table view without using a frame. We can just use programmatic auto layout, which is how I like to do things on this channel and in my courses, right? So 100% programmatic quality stuff. All right, total control. Let's go ahead and let's set up our table view by saying setup table view and then creating a function. Oops, let's call this function file private func setup table view, and let's throw in the table view. Okay, we'll say view.addSubView table view, and then we'll constrain it by saying TableView.topAnchor.constraint is equal to view.topAnchor, and we're going to give this a constant of 100, and we'll activate it. Now let me kind of expand this so you can see it all a bit better, and then I'll zoom into the code a little bit more, and then we'll finish off our constraints and go on with the course or the video. I've been recording a lot of course stuff lately on animations, so that's why I said that. All right, let's copy that, paste it here, and paste it here. And we're gonna set these equal to the leading anchor. And then we'll set this to 50 on the leading anchor. And then for the top one right here, we'll say trailing anchor, and we'll say trailing anchor, and the constant here will be -50. And then the bottom one, we'll say bottom anchor, and then we'll change it to -50. All right, so not going to explain the constraints too much because I have tons of videos on my channel and in my courses that explain this, and we're here to learn about the actual animatable table view cell. So let's go ahead and go on with this and not worry about that. I'm also not going to be talking too much about the delegate and data source of TableView. I'm just going to say TableView.delegate itself and TableView.dataSource itself, and then we're going to use those two protocols so that we can actually use the table view. If you want to know the specifics on those, again, there's stuff on my channel for that. But again, this video is going to be focused purely on the concept at hand. All right, and let me know if you like that. And I'll change my videos according to what you want, because that's what I do here on maxcodes.io, right? Okay, so we're ready to start writing our table view stuff. Let's go ahead and, our table view stuff, our table view protocols. Let's say extension view controller is of type uitableview. Well, will conform to the uitableview delegate and the uitableview data source, okay? Next thing we'll do is we will simply return the amount of rows we need by hitting this little fix button and hitting fix, and it adds the number of rows in section method and the cell for row at method. You can also just type these out and it will auto-populate and you can get these methods in there. Okay, so for number of rows in section, we're gonna return data.count. Now, where does data come from? We haven't yet declared data. So what we need to do is provide an array that has our data, and then we'll also use it for our cell for row at. So before we do that, let's go ahead and go up top, and let's do it right in here since we can see it. And what we'll do is we will say let data is equal to an array. Now, this will get rid of the error, but we don't really have our struct yet that will provide us with data. So we just need to make a simple struct that's going to provide us with a title and a URL, okay? And you can put in your own custom content, make your own custom data, but I think it's important that you follow along just so you don't mess up anywhere while you're going along with a tutorial. That's what I do, and then I customize tutorials to my own liking, because I go through tutorials and courses myself. I buy a lot of iOS courses. All right, and I'm not just saying that. Like, I'm serious. I buy iOS courses all the time. All right, we'll say struct, and then we'll say MC drop data The reason I'm saying MC is because maxcodes, and if you watch Let's Build That App, he uses for his components LBTA. It kind of looks like the LGBTA thing, but I don't know. MC makes me look like a rapper, so, you know, MCU drop data. All right, anyway, let's go ahead and say MC drop data has a title of string and a URL of string, okay? Let's go ahead and declare some of these now. We'll say MC drop data has a title of pro animations. And I would put the straight up coupon code to this, to my course, but I don't want to waste your time. And there's actually coupon codes straight on maxcodes courses. So feel free to check those out if you want. And you'll learn more about animations. You'll even learn the Snapchat drag animation that I'm always so hyped about. Anyway, let's go ahead and declare a few more. I'm going to say core data since I made the iOS Notes app core data course. And then StoreKit. I'm actually working on this course today, making a lot of StoreKit stuff. So StoreKit, maxcodes.io/courses. StoreKit will teach you in-app purchases, right? I just want to put some content in here so we can get it on the screen. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go down here and use the self-route method by simply saying let cell. So we'll go ahead and say let cell is equal to tableview dot DQ reusable cell with identifier for index path. And let me know where this is kind of throwing you off. Like my teaching style, I really want to format my videos so you guys can follow along nicely. Maybe I'm going too fast. Just let me know whatever you need to let me know and I'll change my videos because I want to make these videos understandable for you and easy to follow along with. All right, so that's our code so far. Again, code is in the GitHub repo below if you need to check that out while you're following along. And then now what we'll do is we will compile this, okay? Because we haven't really compiled it yet. So what I'm going to do is remember what this is called so we can reference it, or I'll just switch back to it, and then we'll compile this, okay? So go ahead and feel free to pause and get all this code in. If you didn't get it in, pause where you need to get all this code in. This is all the code we've written, okay? All right, this is what we should see. So in order to get this effect, we need to provide a custom cell, okay? Because right now we don't have a custom cell. So what we need to do is we need to go ahead and create a custom cell. So I'm going to hit that button right there and I'm going to create a new file. And this file I'm going to call mcdropcell. mcdropcell is simply going to be a Swift file that's going to contain a bunch of custom views. Okay, so not too many custom views, but enough that it's going to take us like 5 or 6 minutes to write. Okay, next thing we'll do is we'll say class mcdropcell is of type uitablevieWcell. Notice how I used the MC on this as well. It's important to have consistency throughout your application. Okay, uitablevieWcell, and then we're going to just set up our data. Okay, so we'll say var data is of type mcDropData because that was the struct we wrote previously. And then we'll say did set, and then when it's set, we will unwrap it, okay? Because we want this to be an optional type. Now, people have mixed feelings on that. You don't have to make it optional, but I'm going to make it optional because I don't want to deal with any crashes in this app, just in case, okay? All right, we'll say guard let data is equal to data, else return. So the only way we can run code here is if data actually has a value, which I'll show you how to set in just a second. Now there's two things we want to do here. We want to say self.title.text is equal to data.title, and then we want to say self.url.text is equal to data.url. But where are these variables? We haven't yet declared them. So I'm going to comment them out so we don't get any errors. And I'll set up those labels right now. All right. We'll say file private. Let title is of type UI label, not uitableview. Oops, can't type. I guess I'm just not good at typing. All right, and then what we'll do is we will throw in some label properties here. So I'll speed it up and then pause the video and get these in here because this is just basic label stuff that I don't need to explain, just very basic label stuff. But if you don't understand labels yet, I guess just kind of read those a bit and you'll understand it a bit, okay? So font of size, I'll speed it up right now. Okay, so go ahead and get this all in here and I'll explain it, okay? Font, bold, size 18, placeholder text, colors white, text alignment center, and we're setting it up for programmatic auto layout with translates, auto resizing, masking, and constraints. Now what we need to do is declare another label for our URL. This could also just be like called description or something, because right here it's more of a description, but just feel free to call this whatever you want. I'm going to call it URL. And then I'll speed up this as I change this all too, okay? So I'll actually talk. So now what we want to do is just change some of these properties. I'll say medium for the font weight. And then for this, I'll just say pro iOS courses at maxcodes.io/courses. Oops. Dopey dope. All right. And then text color, white. Text alignment, we don't want it to be center. You can have it center if you want. I'm not gonna have it at center. And then we want unlimited number of lines. So I'll just say label.number of lines is equal to -1. And then we're good there. Okay, so now what we need to do is set up our views here within a container view, because you'll notice that these are indented a bit. And the only way we can do this with the background color is if we have a container view with that background color. Okay, because you can't indent the content view of a table view. So we'll say file private var container is of type UI view. That could be a let, I'm pretty sure. I initially put var, I can't remember why. Probably just because I didn't put let. You can put let, all right? Let's put let. Let's put let, guys. Let's just put let, all right? Let's put let, all right. Return v, and then now what we need to do is just give it some properties, okay? So first thing is translates auto size and mask constraints false. And then clips to bounds is really important here. Now this is important for the dropdown itself, because the way we're gonna do this is we're not actually going to like get rid of this label. It's actually there. It's just that we're clipping it so it can't be seen, right? Because we're clipping it to the view. So that's what that does. Go ahead and command click on clips to bounds and hit show quick help. And it says a Boolean value determines whether the subviews are combined to the bounds of the view. So the bounds of the view is like 60 pixels high, and the height of the title is 60 pixels, which means this is clipped off when it's closed. So that's why it works. Okay, now we'll say v.background color is equal to UI color.dark gray. And then we'll just say v.layer.corner radius. I'm gonna put something like 8 just to make it a little bit round. Okay, so we're now ready to throw this on the screen and get it looking good, all right? So let's go ahead and say override init, and then I'll say super.init, and we'll choose the same initializer, pass in the style, pass in the reuse identifier, because we need to conform to that or it won't work. That's why we have to do it, all right? Next thing we'll do is we will simply say contentview.add subview, and we're gonna throw on the container view, okay? Now let's go ahead and fix this error real quick. You've probably seen this before. Just go ahead and get that method in. Don't even know why we need it, but it makes it so the app doesn't crash. So we need this required initializer, all right? Okay, now what we need to do is constrain the container, and I'll tell you why, okay? So container.topanchor.constraint is equal to, I hate this small keyboard. I always miss the arrow keys. And we'll set it equal to this one with a constant. We'll say contentview.topanchor, and the constant is gonna be 4. Now the reason we have to do this, or the reason I'm doing it, is because I want this to be inset a bit, and that's how we can do it really easily, okay, with the constant. It's the whole point of the container view, really. All right, we'll constrain all this. We'll see leading anchor, trailing anchor, and bottom anchor, and bottom anchor. Now the constant on the bottom needs to be -4, and the constant on the trailing needs to be -4, because that's how it works. Think of it like in the center, right? We're pulling it 4 into the center. All right, there we go. Now what we need to do is we need to throw our container subviews in. So we'll say container.add subview, and we'll say title, and then container.add subview, and we'll say URL. Now we just need to constrain the title and the URL, and we need to think about it a bit, okay? So before we constrain these, we need to go ahead and go back to our table view and write some logic. So go ahead and pause the video here, get this code in, pause the video here, get this code in, just make sure all this code is in, all right? Okay, and if we compile it, we shouldn't get any errors. It should look exactly the same as it looked when we last compiled it, because we didn't have this cell, but we actually haven't used this cell yet, so it shouldn't do anything. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna go back to the view controller.swift where we have our cell. Now what we want to do is we want to actually register the cell to the table view so that we can use it instead of just using a default cell. So what we'll do is we'll say TableView.register. This cell class is going to be mcDropCell. And for the reuse identifier, I'm going to put cell. Now the reason we're using, and we have to say mcDropCell.self. The reason we're using the string here is because down here we're using the string cell as well. Now what we can do in our cell row is say as, and then cast it as a mcDropCell. Cool, now what we can do is set the data. So we'll say cell.data, is equal to data at indexPath.row. What this is going to do is it's going to go ahead and it's going to check which row we're on, and it's going to select the appropriate data for each. Okay, cool. Hope that makes sense. We also don't want the selection style, so we'll say cell.selectionStyle is equal to .none. And then we're going to say cell.animate, but we haven't yet written this function, so we'll talk about that later. We'll come back to that. Okay, so let's go ahead and compile this and make sure everything is looking goody, all right? Okay, looks good. And you'll see that we don't actually have any data on the screen, and it's because we haven't really constrained our title and our URL to the container view, right? So let's go ahead and return the height of the cell as well, because we haven't done that as well. So what we need to do is override a method, and we need to just say height for row at, and we just need to return 60 for now, okay? Okay, so let's go ahead and compile that. That's all the table view methods we'll need except for did select row, because we still need to implement that. So what we're going to do is type in did select row at, hit return, and then we'll just do nothing in there for now. This is where we're going to select an index and then basically say, hey, we need to reload the table view height for the selected index. And that's how we're going to determine the height. And then I'll show you how we can animate it, because this is where a lot of people get stuck. They don't understand that what you have to do is call out layout if needed within the custom cell for it to give you the animations you want. So what we'll do before that is go ahead and uncomment the delegate and data source calls, and we'll compile that. And what that's going to do is it's actually going to allow these methods to run, which will then in turn give us our title and our subtitle or URL, right? So that looks good, kinda. What we need to do though is constrain it properly after we have the height for row at responding to our did select, okay? So what we're gonna do right now is get in the logic that will allow us to expand it like you see here in the completed app. Once we're done with that, we will head back into the cell class and constrain our title and our URL appropriately. Okay, so if we're not returning 60, we want to return 200. That's how we're going to get that bigger cell value. But how do we determine that, right? Really simple, actually. We just need to declare a property called selected index and base it off that. So let's go up here into our view controller.swift right below where we declared our data, and we'll say var selected index. Now you can mark this with a bang if you want. I'm going to be extra careful and use an optional value. Or what I'm going to do is say is equal to index path, and I'm just going to set it equal to row with 0 and section with 0. This will just have it default selected to the first cell. Okay, so before we can do anything with this, or before we can see anything in here, we have to do something with this, okay? So what we'll do is we'll go down here and we'll say height for row at, and we'll say if selected index is equal to index path, then return 200. So it's basically saying, okay, well, if we have the selected index, we want this one to be bigger. All right, that's exactly what we're doing here. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. You'll see that the first one is bigger now, okay? But how do we get it to animate and change? So first, the way we can get it to change is by going into did select and resetting selected index. We'll say selected index is equal to index path. Okay, so we're resetting it. And then we just have to reload the specific row, okay? The selected index row, not all of them, just that one. So we'll say TableView.begin updates begins a series of method calls that insert, delete, or select rows and sections of the table view. And then TableView.end updates. Next thing we'll do is say TableView.reload rows. And it says reloads the specified rows given an animation effect. So very simple stuff. And we just want to throw in an array, the index path, or better yet, the selected index. It will do the same thing because we're just setting it right here, but you get the point. And I don't want to animate it. If you choose fade, it's actually going to give it a weird kind of like flash animation that you don't want at all, okay? Okay, let's go ahead and take a look. You'll see it opens it up and it animates kind of good, but the bottom one doesn't, right? You'll see when we open a bottom one, it kind of just pops open, which doesn't really look good, right? How can we fix that? Well, pretty simply, all we have to do is write a method within our MC drop cell called animate. So let's go to and uncomment that. So when we write this method, it will use layout if needed to give us the effect we want, okay? So let's go ahead and go into our MC drop cell here, and I'm gonna write a function called file private, sorry, not file private, but just func animate. and we're going to put in a spring with damping method. We'll say uiview spring return. It's going to take 0.5 and the delay is going to be 0.3. Then the spring with damping is going to be 0.8 and the initial spring velocity is going to be 1. You can configure these values to your liking. Okay, the animation options, I'm going to say curve ease in. Again, you can put what you want. Curve ease in seems to work the best. And then we're going to hit return on the animations and say self.contentview.layout if needed. Hit tab and then we'll get rid of the completion. And let's recompile our application and see if it animates appropriately. Okay, go ahead and start clicking it and you'll see that it animates really nicely, all right? So hopefully that makes sense. Let's go ahead now and constrain our title and our URL and then we'll be done with the video. So one thing we can do for now is get rid of these in our data because we now have the data and we're setting it. And then now all we need to do is put in the correct constraints for the title and URL and we'll be completed with the video. Okay, so let's go ahead and under our container here in our drop cell, we'll say title.topAnchor.constraint is going to be equal to container.topAnchor, and we'll activate that. And then what we'll do is copy that and we'll say leading and leading, and then we'll say trailing. And for the last one, we will simply say title.heightAnchor.constraint is equal to constant 60. Now, the reason we're doing this is because when it's closed, we want the title to be the entire cell, right? And then when it's open, we want the rest to appear. Okay, so we can do that by saying, okay, well, this is the same height as what we return in our height for row at. And then we'll let the description or the rest of the content that you want to put in there equal to the remaining space, okay? So pretty simple stuff. Let's just go ahead and copy this, paste it. And what we'll do is we will say url.hideAnchor is equal to something like 140, okay? And then we'll say URL trailing and URL leading and URL top anchor. And the top anchor is actually going to be the title.bottom anchor. Okay, that way it's always below the title, okay? And then the rest can kind of stay the same. Let's give it a little inset though, because we don't want the titles to be like directly on the sides. So what we'll do on the leading anchor for the title is we will say constant is 4. And then for this trailing one, we'll say constant is -4. And then we'll do the same for the URL. We'll say constant is 4 and we'll say constant is -4. Go ahead and compile that and we should be good to go. Now, while we're waiting for that, I just want to let you know that like this is how I teach in my courses. So if you are interested in learning a whole bunch about iOS development, you can learn from my courses. All right. So that's how you do it. And I'm really loving the way this looks. And you now know how to do this. Okay. So again, check out the courses. Let me know if you liked the video and I'll see you in the very next video. Catch you next time.